the text will start, we'll read. But today, while I was thinking about it, all sorts of ideas come into my head. So I will just briefly, this whole chapter is about what is reality and what is unreality. So I'll give you the gist of what came into my mind. I'm sharing with you. It may be useful. It was useful for me. So it should probably be useful to you also. So what is reality and what is unreality? Okay. There is a gradation. You must remember that. There is no absolute reality at all the levels. There isn't. There is reality, absolute reality, only at the highest level. And as the manifestation occurs and there's an involution that occurs, the reality starts becoming less and less and less until finally it becomes only like a representation. So I'll give you two ideas which will help to understand this way. In other words, the physical world is not the reality. The forms that you see are only representations. Like we have discussed very often, the photograph and the person of the photograph. The photograph can be torn and thrown away, but the person remains. So that's the absolute reality. And the photograph is just a representation. The world is a representation. Okay. So now, how it becomes subtler and subtler, I'll give you two instances. It came into my mind, so I thought it's worth sharing. Okay. Let us take, first of all, the idea of the communication. Okay. I'll take communication. Yasmin is there in Bombay and I am here in Pondicherry. So about 25 years ago, we could not, we had to go through the exchange and say, please connect me to Yasmin, and they would connect me. Then about 25 years ago, it was a stunning thing. I remember when it came, we could talk directly on the line, the STD. Okay, subscriber dialing system came into the picture, and you could just pick up your phone and talk to anybody in India or even the world afterwards. So we require for communication a very gross setup. First, you have a phone at my end, and there is a phone at Yasmin's end in Bombay, and there is a wire connecting us. There is a wire connecting. It's a gross thing. Now, can this communication become subtler? Yes, it became subtler when the wire between the two phones disappeared. So now it is becoming subtler. So communication has become even subtler. Now I have a mobile and she has a mobile. Even this Skype that we are doing, okay? So I am communicating with you, but we are not communicating through anything physical. It is only subtle waves are going and giving. Now, is there something? So it has become subtler, the communication. Now, can that communication become even subtler? Yes, because directly I don't need to use mobiles and phones. I can use my mind and communicate with something else, telepathy. So you can see that there is a gradation from the gross to the subtler and finally the subtlest. Okay. Now I'll give you another instance, and this is what we have to understand about reality. So I'll give you another instance. Take money. I have ₹100 note and I go to the market and I say I want these vegetables. I give the note to them. It's a physical note. I give it to them and they give me the vegetables. I come back. It's a gross way of exchanging. Now what has happened is, now I don't need a ₹100 note, but I have replaced it with a card. I just go there and put that card into that machine and it says my bank has debited this account. It is a slightly subtler form. Now I don't need to make payments. I can just sit at my computer and make digital payments. Okay, so that's a subtler. The payment system from gross has gone to subtler. I don't need to go anywhere. I just sit at my home and do digital transfer. It has become subtler. Now, can there be something even subtler than that? Yes, because money, the bank note is a gross reality. But what does it represent? It represents the actual power of getting whatever you want. That is the reality. So now I can get whatever I want without the bank note, without even the credit card. Now what happens? When you become a yogi, you can get anything you want with your consciousness. So it will become even subtler. So this is the thing that he is discussing in this chapter. There is an absolute reality at the highest level, which is the only reality. And as we keep coming down to the physical world, it becomes more and more gross, until finally it becomes the grossest of all. And you continue to think that it's a reality. It is not as real as it used to be earlier. Okay. So this is the gradation of reality. Everything is ultimately real, but there is a reality in time and space, and there is a reality outside time and space, which is the absolute real reality. So this is what Shri is discussing in this para, but in a very terse and summarily manner, I've told you what he is saying in the para. Okay, so I hope it helped. Okay, I thought it helped me also, but I remember when one girl in the ashram, I forget her name. Oh yeah, her name is Vandana. Her father was a carpenter from Punjab, but he used to work in Orissa, and he came here. And when he died, okay, at a quite an elderly age, her name was Vandana. Now I remember. She said, "My father was a body and a mind and a vital. I could see him and interact with him, touch him. Now he has become only a photograph. Okay. What he was gross has become only a photograph. It has become subtler. But a time will come when that even the photograph will disappear, and you will be only a record in the municipal record of births and deaths. It becomes even subtler. So this is how we have to see the thing. Okay, so this is what he is discussing. So I thought I'd share it with you. I hope it has been useful. We now go to the para that we have to read today. If we scrutinize other illustrations. So we'll read the para.
But doesn't the photo have some value? Because we have Mother and Sri Aurobindo's photos.
Okay.
And especially ones with their signature. So what does that actually signify?
That's exactly what Srimda has told many people, because at one time people used to work with mother, okay, and they used to think that it is more important then Srimda again and again stresses that working with mother physically is not the important thing. Establish relation with the mother in your consciousness. Okay, so I'm not saying that the photograph has no value. In fact, I said the opposite. I said that there is a reality, but it's a half reality, a quarter reality. Okay, there is a gradation of reality. So certainly, mother's signature and mother's photograph has value. It is through that photograph that I go to the ultimate. That is the thing. Exactly, the banknote is important. If you don't have a banknote, the power of getting things is not there. Now, I'm not saying there is an absolute unreality. In fact, there is no absolute unreality. Unreality does not exist, not even in thought. There is no unreality. Everything is real, but in graded sequences. That's all. Right? Okay. So, who will read? Sunki, you can read. You have not read for many days. You read the paragraph. If we scrutinize.
Yes.
Go ahead.
If we scrutinize other illustrations or analogies that are offered to us for a better understanding of the operation of Maya, we detect in all of them an inapplicability that deprives them of their force and value. The familiar instance of a mother of pearl and silver turns also, like the rope and snake analogy, upon an error due to a resemblance between a present real and another, an absent real. It can have no application to the imposition of a multiple and mutable unreality upon a sole and unique immutable real. In the example of an optional illusion, duplicating or multiplying a single object, as when we see two moons instead of one, there are two or more identical forms of the one object one real, one, or the rest, an illusion. This does not illustrate the juxtaposition of the world and Brahman. For, in the operation of Maya, there is a much more complex phenomenon. There is indeed an illusory multiplication of the identical, imposed upon its one and ever unalterable identity, the one appearing as many, but upon that is imposed an immense organized diversity in nature, a diversity of forms and movements which have nothing to do with the original real. Dreams, visions, the imagination of the artist or poet can present such an organized diversity, which is not real. But it's an imitation, a mimesis of a real and already existent organized diversity. And it starts from such a mimesis, and even in the richest variation or wildest invention, some mimetic element is observable. There is here no such thing as the operation attributed to Maya, in which there is no mimesis, but a pure and radically original creation of unreal forms and movements that are non-existent anywhere, and neither imitate, nor reflect, nor alter, and develop anything discoverable in the reality. There is nothing in the operations of mind illusion that throws light upon this mystery. It is, as a stupendous cosmic illusion of this kind, must be sui generis, without parallel. What we see in the universe is that a diversity of the identical is everywhere the fundamental operation of cosmic nature. But here it presents itself not as an illusion, but as a various real formation out of a one original substance, a reality of oneness manifesting itself in a reality of numberless forms and powers of its being is what we confront everywhere. There is no doubt in its process, a mystery, even a magic, but there is nothing to show that it is a magic of the unreal and not a working of a consciousness and force of being of the omnipotent real, a self-creation operated by an eternal self-knowledge.
So that brings us to the end of the para. Okay, so just 1 minute, I am having trouble with my just 1 second. If we scrutinize, so he is referring to the other images of Shankara. Okay, the first image which he has discussed in great detail, he is not discussing in great detail the other ones. He is just touching up. But the dream analogy he has discussed in great detail. Now he is saying we look at the other illustration. If you remember, the illustration, one is the dream, the other is the mirage, the desert, then there is the moon reflected in troubled waters, and then you have so many, several moons, and the image of the serpent and the rope, and then finally the image of the silver, the seashell, which has got a silver coating, and you think it is silver, actually it's not silver at all. So now I'll read each sentence and we'll see. If we scrutinize illustrations or analogies, yeah, Archana, this internet is giving a lot of noise. Yeah, I don't know why it is like that. Our internet.
Can you mute yourself?
Sorry.
Yeah, now it's not there. Okay. So if we scrutinize other illustrations or analogies that are offered to us for a better understanding of the operation of Maya, okay, the word Maya is the power of the Satchidananda to make forms out of the formless are made forms. And that we can see in the physical world also. No? That which is inherent in a seed can become the tree. It's a miracle how that happens. How can it happen? We don't think of it. Says Maya is also in the sense of magic. But actually it means only nothing. It is not magic, but it is only the power of the divine to create forms out of the formless. Okay? So we detect in all of them, simply saying, an inapplicability that deprives them of their force and value. In other words, you can't explain this question of reality and unreality with images. All the images are not going to be valid. And there is a very good reason for that. We'll discuss that reason also. Because how can you picture something as unreal when there is no unreality at all? How will you make a comparison? Everything has got a relative reality. That's the whole point. So, now he's saying the inapplicability that deprives them of their force and value. Deprives them of their force and value. They are partly real. Just now Yasmin said about the photograph of Mother and Sridhar. Of course it has got power. But you have to go from the gross to the subtle. And you have to establish the subtlest relation between you and the mother. Not through the photograph you go, and then you will go to the absolute reality. So, the familiar instance of mother of pearl. Okay, there is a seashell. He is talking about the seashell. And silver also turns out, like the rope and snake analogy, upon an error due to the resemblance between a present real and another absent real. So there you are. The analogy fails because, remember, the Mayavada theory is that the world that you are seeing is absolute unreality. You have to begin with that. But actually Mayavada may not be saying that, but if you take it as that, then the analogy is absolutely unacceptable. Because even for Mayavada, there are many philosophies. So, if we take it that Buddhism and Mayavada are saying that the physical world, whatever you see in it, has absolutely no reality, not even representations, then there can be no comparison. That's what he's saying. Because in each case, so rope exists and snake exists, you are mistaking between the two. In the case of the seashell, the silver exists and the shell also exists, but you are mistaking one for the other. Both are real. So they are using the word present real and absent real. Okay? So then it doesn't apply. The analogy becomes inapplicable. Okay. I'm having trouble with my. Okay. So it can have no application to the imposition of a multiple and mutable unreality upon a sole and unique immutable real. The immutable real is the absolute on top, and the mutable unreality is the physical world. And so if you give images, it does not work out to be true, because even the mutable unreality is a semi-reality. That's why it doesn't work out. And also remember that the mutable unreality is multiple. Okay? It's multiple. The one becomes the many. You must remember that. Okay? So, in the example of an optical illusion, duplicating or multiplying a single object, as when we see two moons instead of one in troubled waters, there are two or more identical forms of the one object, one real, one or the rest an illusion. So the illusion is the reflection in the troubled water and the reality is up there. So again this does not illustrate the juxtaposition of world and Brahman. The juxtaposition of world and Brahman is the screen and the juxtaposition is the images thrown on the cinema screen. So that does not reflect that. The image given is one becomes the many are unreal and the one is the real. But then the Mayavada theory is saying only the unreality is juxtaposed, is imposed upon the screen. So the analogy is not valid. That's what Sridhar is saying. It is quite easy to understand what he's saying. This does not illustrate the juxtaposition of world and Brahman. For in the operation of Maya, there is a much more complex phenomenon. There is indeed an illusory multiplication of the identical imposed upon its one and ever unalterable identity. So we come back to the idea of the matter is real, but all the forms of matter are temporary. They can disappear. Your body, my body is all matter, but they have a reality, but in time and space. But it is not in timelessness, it is not real. That's it. The one appearing as many, but upon that is imposed an immense organized diversity in nature. It is not only a simple diversity, but it's a multiple, immensely organized diversity. There is trees, animals, even if you take life, okay, there are 100,000 animal types. So there is an organized multiplicity. So it is quite different from one moon being reflected as two moons. It's not that at all. It is like the one moon is producing two moons, but also two stars and also two something else. Okay, that's what Sridhar is saying. That's what the image given does not apply. Okay, so the one appearing as many, but upon that is imposed an immense organized diversity. There are, if you take the trees, they have capacity of life to create forms. There are not only mango trees, but there are chiku trees, there are pineapple bushes and whatnot. It goes on endlessly. So this is not illustrated by the example of the moon and two moons in the water, because that's only one division. But the division is complex in the physical world. It becomes many, many things. So, it's easy to understand what he's saying. So, then he's saying an immense organized diversity in nature. But note interestingly, the diversity is organized. Okay? Every word, incidentally, if you think about it, you will see that there is a great amount of meaning in what he's saying. The diversity is not chaotic. It is absolutely organized. There is a gradation and a meaning to everything. Take even the very simple example of the mango tree, okay? All the mango trees are different and they are producing different types. But there is organized, they are all similar in many ways. That similarity is the organization. Okay? It's not different. So, then we come to the next forms. Okay? Dreams, visions, the imagination of the artist or poet can present such an organized diversity which is not real, because he can produce from his thoughts, he can produce. Some has produced, I think, about 30, 40 sonnets. Okay? Multiplicity, organized multiplicity, and they're very similar, some of them. Okay, Nirvana and the Unreal World and all, so many sonnets are very similar. What about Shakespeare? 100 sonnets he has produced. So, organized diversity, which is not real. But it's an imitation. The word mimesis means an imitation. The word mimesis means representative image, an imitation. He has used the word mimesis of a real and already existent organized diversity, or it starts from such a mimesis, and even in the richest variation or wildest invention, some mimetic element is always observable. You can see that there is an imitation. All human beings are imitations of the one essential man. There is here no such thing as the operation attributed to Maya, in which there is no mimesis, but a pure and radically original creation of unreal forms. So the original creation of unreal forms is the Mayavada theory. The forms that you're seeing in the physical world is absolutely unreal. They exist nowhere at all. So that is, therefore, it is inapplicable. That's what he said. There is nothing in the operations of mind illusion that throws light upon this mystery. You can't give examples precisely because there is nothing unreal. So how can you describe unreality when it doesn't exist? You can only describe something that exists. What we see in the universe is that a diversity of the identical is everywhere. A diversity of the identical. Okay? The fundamental operation of cosmic nature. Nature is one and producing diversity, but each diversity is different. Okay? As I said, there are trees, there are species of animals, there is within the species there is a diversity. But there is another species which makes it the organized multiplicity. Okay? So that's it. But here it presents itself as an illusion. But here it presents itself not as an illusion, not as an illusion, but as a various real formation out of a one original substance. Okay? The physical world is that. It is creating many out of the one. Both are relatively real. But as a various real formulation out of the one original substance. The one original substance is Sat, or in the Sankhya philosophy you call it the Pradhana. It's the subtlest substance from which everything can be made. Sat Chit Shakti Ananda. There is no doubt in its process, a mystery. Certainly, it's a magic. But there is nothing to show that it's a magic of the unreal and not a working of consciousness and force of being of the omnipotent real, a self-creation operated by an eternal self-knowledge. He has examined the images given by Shankara and he finds that all of them are not really applicable. They are very useful. He is not saying that they are not useful. They are very useful to understand the unreality of the physical world. But if you press it too hard and too far, then you see that it is not applicable. Okay? Because of the very simple fact that everything has got a relative reality. So when there is an absolute, when there is a relative reality, how can you describe something which is absolutely unreal? It's impossible to think of something totally unreal. Even if you think of it as a flying tiger, as I said. Okay? Flying is real and tiger is real. You are combining them. But you can't think of anything that is not existent in the world. That's exactly what the Gita also says. The Gita says that that which is non-existence can never come into existence. And that which is existent in the world can never go out of existence. So this is very clear that there is no such thing as non-existence. Okay? We can now go to the next para. So what is creating this unreal? Your mind. Your mind is creating this illusion. It is, your mind is taking data from the physical world and presenting a picture to you and saying, this is the reality. Okay? But at the highest level also, it is mind that is creating the super mind and is creating it has got the power of Maya. It has got the power to create forms out of the formless. It's very difficult for man to understand how it can happen. Huh? How can the formless take form? But that is the power of the divine. That's exactly. And there's a similarity between the poets. Srimda has given there's a small booklet called The Philosophy of the Upanishads. And there Srimda has given an image. He says that a poet, when he has got ideas in his head and he puts them down on paper and creates forms, okay, he says he finds about 14, I think 13 or 14 similarities between Brahman creating the world and the poet creating his sonnets. Okay. So, we won't go into that because that's another discussion altogether. But very, very similar. That which is formless and only an idea in the mind can become a reality. But it's a relative reality. Okay. So now This at once raises the question of the nature of mind. In other words, he is coming to two concepts in philosophy. One is ontology and the other is epistemology. Epistemology is the study of the methods of gathering knowledge. How do you get knowledge? What are the ways by which you can get knowledge? The knowledge that a worm gets is different from the knowledge that the cat gets, and it's different from the way man gets his knowledge, and also the yogi gets his knowledge. They're all different. So epistemology is a study of the acquisition of knowledge. And ontology is the study of what is reality. What is real and what is unreal. So that's what now he is raising. This at once raises the question of the nature of mind. Your mind is giving you relative realities. So what is the nature of mind? He is going to examine. So let's read it. We've got time, we've got 15 minutes, so we can read it.
Shall I read?
Yes, Yasmin, go ahead. This at once raises.
This at once raises the question of the nature of mind, the parent of these illusions, and its relation to the original existence. Is mind the child and instrument of an original illusion, or is it itself a primal miscreating force or consciousness, or is the mental ignorance a misprision of the truths of existence, a deviation from an original truth consciousness, which is the real world builder? Our own mind, at any rate, is not an original and primary creative power of consciousness. It is an all mind of the same character, must be derivative, an instrument, demiurge, an intermediary creator. It is likely then that analogies from the errors of mind, which are the outcome of an intermediate ignorance, may not truly illustrate the nature or action of the original creative illusion, and all inventing and all constructing Maya. Our mind stands between a superconscious and an unconscious and receives from both these opposite powers. It stands between an occult subliminal existence and an outward cosmic phenomena. It receives inspirations, intuitions, imaginations, impulsions to knowledge and action, figures of subjective realities or impossibilities from the unknown inner source. It receives the figures of realized actualities and their suggestions of further possibility from the observed cosmic phenomena. What it receives are truths essential, possible or actual. It starts from the realized actualities of the physical universe, and it brings out from them in its subjective action the unrealized possibilities which they contain or suggest, or to which it can arrive by proceeding from them as a starting point. It selects some out of these possibilities for a subjective action and plays with imagined or inwardly constructed forms of them. It chooses others for objectivization and attempts to realize them. But it receives inspirations also from above and within, from invisible sources, and not only from the impacts of the invisible cosmic phenomena. It sees truths other than those suggested by the actual physicality around it. And here too, it plays subjectively with transmitted or constructed forms of these truths, or it selects for objectivization, attempts to realize.
So he's discussing the mind. So the mind is something in between the superconscious and the inconscient. The inconscient is producing senses which are instruments of knowledge, and these senses become more and more, the inconscient is producing instruments of knowledge which is becoming more and more capable, more and more effective. So this is what he is discussing. So mind naturally is itself defective. So how can it give a picture of the absolute reality when it is itself defective? An instrument which is defective can never give you a correct picture. That's exactly what he is discussing. Okay. I remember the camera I had earlier was not at all very good and it used to give a blurred image. Now I changed the camera, I've changed my instrument and the image is now much sharper. Okay. I think some of you may remember about 1 year ago or 1.5 years ago we changed. So it depends on the instrument of knowledge. And the mind is an instrument of knowledge. And at different levels, the effectivity of the capacity to gather knowledge goes on changing. It becomes more and more imperfect as it comes down and becomes more and more perfect as it goes up. So we'll go to the beginning of we have got about 10 minutes, so I think we can finish this para today. It's quite simple. I don't think it's very complicated. This at once raises the question of the nature of mind. How is mind giving you knowledge? That's what he's saying. The parent of these illusions. Mind is the parent of these illusions. It is because of mind that you are having these illusions. In fact, if you don't use your mind as an instrument and go above in a superior mind, then the illusions disappear and you get the reality. That's what he's saying. Use the right instrument is what he's saying. And its relation to the original existence. Which is the original existence? The superconscious or the Satchidananda. Okay. So, the supermind is the instrument that gives you the real picture of the original existence, which is Satchidananda. Now, he is asking a question. Is mind the child and instrument of an original illusion? Or is it itself a primal miscreating force of consciousness? He is discussing. Now, in this case, you are a researcher and you are researching. You don't have a preconceived idea that there is a perfection and a divine. If you are researching, you are looking, you are an explorer. So if that is the question, then this question comes up. Don't start with the idea that there is a divine which is perfect. If you don't know, you are not seeing the divine. So you are researching. If that is the thing, this question makes a lot of sense. Okay, look at it. Is mind the child and instrument of an original illusion? In other words, there is no reality at all. Mind is only giving you something which is unreal. Sorry. It's giving you a picture of an total unreality. That's what Mahabharata seems to be saying. Okay, not exactly, but anyway, something. So, or is it itself a primal miscreating force of consciousness? So, look at the two questions he is asking. He is asking if the mind, okay, is mind the child and instrument of an original creation. The original illusion is there. It's a original illusion, and mind is picturing that in an uncertain manner. Is it that, or is like an agent? No? All agents are representing the original and giving you down below a picture of that. So is that original itself, is it an illusion, or is the mind, which is an agent, giving you a picture of that? Which is the reality? That's what Swami is asking. If you are as I told you, to understand this question, you have to start from the basis that I don't know that there is a perfection and a divine. If that is there, then this question is valid. But if you are already thinking from before, which is a mental idea, but you don't know, okay, so then this question will make no sense to you. You are researching, you are going from one level to another level. Is mind the child and instrument of an original illusion? In other words, there is no divine. Okay? Or is it itself a primal miscreating force and consciousness? So there may be something, but the mind is giving you a wrong picture. Is it that or is it this? That's what he's asking. Or is the mental ignorance a misprision of the truths of existence? The mental ignorance, your mind is a misprision, is the wrong seizing of things, a misunderstanding. That's what misprision means. It's not misprison, huh? Because S-I-O-N. So it has to be pronounced like a Z, a misprision. A mental ignorance, is it a misprision, a wrong grasping of truth, okay? A misrepresentation of the truths of existence, a deviation from the original truth consciousness, which is a real world builder. So is it that? Is the ultimate reality, if you want to use it in very grammatical terms, is the origin of everything itself unreal? Or is there a reality and the mind is giving you a wrong picture of it? That's what he's asking. Okay? So, is it that everything that we see is unreal ultimately? Or is it that we are given impression of something through our mind which is a wrong instrument? Our own mind at any rate is not an original and primary creative power of consciousness. So he is making a categorical statement. Our own mind at any rate is not an original or primary creative power of consciousness. It is, and all mind of the same character must be derivative, an instrumental demiurge. An instrumental demiurge. Demiurge is semi-divine being. Okay? So, in other words, it's got power. Divine in the sense of it's got certain powers. An intermediary creator. So this is very interesting. Your mind has got the capacity to create. Okay? You can see, not only it can create illusions, but it can also create things. But who has created the mobile and the TV? Who has created the automobile and the aeroplane? It's the mind of man. So the mind has created, but it's a secondary creator. It's not a primary creator. What does it mean? The primary creator is something that is creating things which don't seem to exist anywhere. But the mind is, for its creations, it is using things that is already existing and then it is creating them. It is combining and creating. So when it is creating the mobile, it is using metal, it is using plastic which is created. So it is a secondary creator. That's what Shabda is saying. Okay. It is likely then that analogies from the errors of mind, which are the outcome of an intermediate ignorance. Your mind is something in between the superconscious and the inconscient, and it is therefore defective. It is traveling on the road to perfection, but at this stage it is imperfect. That's what Shabda is saying. So, it is likely then that analogies from the errors of mind, which are the outcome of an intermediate existence, may not truly illustrate the nature or action of an original creative illusion, an all-inventing and all-constructing Maya. So it's possible that the instrument you are using is a defective one and therefore you are getting a defective picture. Our mind stands between a superconscious and an inconscious and receives from both these opposite powers. You are getting from on top, you are getting intuitions and ideas, and you are also getting from the bottom. The matter is dictating terms to you. So that's what Shabda is saying. It stands between an occult subliminal existence, an existence which is subtle, and an outward cosmic phenomenon. These two sentences are very interesting. One, he is talking of the superconscient and the inconscient, which is the vertical. Okay? The superconscient is on top and the inconscient is below. It's a vertical thing. But he is now talking about the horizontal, the occult subliminal is deep inside, and the outward cosmic phenomena is one that is outside. So that's a horizontal. So you can see unreality in two ways. There is a vertical unreality and there is an inner unreality, a horizontal unreality. So it receives inspirations, intuitions, imaginations, impulsions to knowledge and action. Figures of subjective realities or possibilities from the unknown inner source. Now, let's look at each word and see what it means. He says it stands between occult subliminal and outward cosmic mind. Semi. Now it receives inspirations. Inspirations. Example, very clear. Einstein got an inspiration for the theory of relativity. Okay. Then our mathematician Ramanujan used to get intuitions. Okay, directly he used to get intuitions, and he has written out 3,000 functions, mathematical functions, which could not be proved logically, but now are being proved. But they are all absolutely accurate. So you can receive inspirations. Then what about intuitions? Intuitions also are the same. By the way, inspirations are, poets receive inspirations. They come from different planes and they get inspiration. Or inspiration also, Shirendra uses the word in the sense of hearing the truth. The Vedas are inspirations. They have been heard, okay? Actually heard, subtle heard. Then intuitions. Intuition is, I think, more apt to describe the Einstein's intuition and also the Ramanujan intuition. Then now he is using another word, imaginations. Okay, imagination. The very good example is the Leonardo da Vinci, who imagined that he could create a machine which could fly 400 years earlier, 400, 500 years earlier. That's imagination. Impulsions to knowledge and action. Now that also is very interesting. When Newton saw the apple falling, okay, he got an idea. It's an impulsion to knowledge. So immediately he could extend that falling of the apple to the law of gravitation. Nobody thought of the law of gravitation before that. So you can see each word how Surendra is using so many different types of things that you can receive. Inspirations. Poets receive inspirations from inside and above. Intuitions. Two examples we have given, very clear examples of intuition. Suddenly an idea comes into your head. It's like a drop of light that comes in. Intuition. Ramanujan and also Einstein. Imaginations. Okay, you can imagine things which become a fact. That's a very good example of the aeroplane. 400 years earlier, it was imagined that it is possible. Okay, then even the submarine, that French fellow who Jules Verne, okay, he could think of a submarine before it actually got constructed. So that's another example of imagination. Impulsions to knowledge, I think a good example would be Newton discovering the law of gravitation by seeing the apple dropping. It was an impulsion to his knowledge and action. Figures of subjective realities or possibilities from the unknown inner source. It receives the figures. Sorry, we have crossed the time, but we just go, we'll finish it. Is it gone? Yeah. It receives the figures of realized activities and their suggestions of further possibilities from an observed cosmic phenomenon. What it receives are truths essential, possible, or actual. Again, we'll have to discuss this. Okay, we'll leave it for next time. We'll leave it for tomorrow. We'll take up from what it receives, because he's talking of essential truths, possible truths, and actual truths. Okay, so what exactly is this? We'll discuss tomorrow. Okay, because there's still quite a lot left in the para, so we'll discuss this tomorrow. So note, page and in the middle of the para, what it receives. We'll take it up from there.
Yes. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, au revoir everybody.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.